Remember the old saying, you are what you eat? Bet you can't eat just one, by Ellen Dean Foster. Read by Carl Wallace. Can I help you find something, sir? Moke glanced sharply at the clerk. He was more nervous than usual these days, with the study so near finishing. Always having to watch his step. Never knew when they might be watching. You cannot. I can find everything by myself when I want to. I simply choose to proceed at my own pace. He smiled. I found a great deal already. I'm in the process of finding more all the time. She eyed him uncertainly. Usually the people she found wandering in this aisle all announced the location of the new adolescent altered killer gerbil cookies, the latest kid food and comic fad. This customer was different. For one thing, he was bigger, and he seemed not so much lost as preoccupied. That's when she noticed the micro cassette recorder he was carrying in lieu of a shopping bag. You from the health department or something? You want I should get the night manager? No. If I was from the health department, I'd have already have shut down this establishment, and everyone like it until they changed their policies. I'm not in a position to do that. Yet. The widening of his humorless grin failed to enlighten the baffled clerk. It was 1 in the morning, near closing time for this particular market. A few amnesiac shoppers remorselessly cruised the aisles, dumping toilet tissue, canned dog food, cereals, and breads, and hopefully dolphin-safe tuna into their carts. Their expressions were resigned, their posture uh, lethargic, except when they passed through this aisle. Then cheerful gossip freshened the air like verbal music. Everyone took something from aisle 6 and luxuriated in the process. The clerk was reluctant to abandon her angular stray. So if you don't mind me asking, mister, what's it shut down? We're as cleaner as any place in town, and every store's just as fresh. We ain't violating no rules. We ain't guilty of nothing. No? Moke's sweeping gesture encompassed the entire aisle. You're like everyone else. You don't see what's going on here. You really don't see it. The clerk blinked at the shelves, seeking enlightenment and finding only cellophane and plastic. This is all garbage, young lady. Awful, swill. The insidious poisoning of a people who have forgotten the nature of real food. Until now, emotionally becalmed, the clerk straightened. Our stock is checked and replaced every day, sir. Everything on our shelves is fresh. If you don't like it here, why don't you shop someplace else? It won't make any difference. It's the same everywhere, Moke informed her sadly. Do not think that in my era I have singled out your place of work for a special condemnation. The entire supermarket industry, in which you are but an insignificant cog, is equally at fault. All participate in the conspiracy. He peered intently at her. You aware that today's junk food contains more than 100 times the volume and variety of chemical additives than the junk food of just 20 years ago? That the very companies which disgorge this mountain of hyena chow in an unsuspecting public have little or no idea how the human body will react to increased consumption of some over a decent period of time? The clerk relaxed. Everything was clear enough to her now for her even to forget that she'd been called an insignificant cog. She even managed a sly smile. You're a health food nut. And proud of it. Do you know that ever since I first unearthed the conspiracy and swore to express it, I haven't touched any of this stuff? He indicated the marshaled ranks of sugar-stuffed cakes, of candy-coated marshmallow, of puffed imitation cheese and fried air. And that since then I haven't been sick a day? Not a day. Not a clothes, no food, nothing. There has to be a connection. And I'm going to reveal it. Uh-huh. The clerk was retreating slowly. Moke noticed the look in her eyes. You're the one who should be afraid of these remasticated additives, not me. My system is clean. I'm a trained scientist, young lady. My specialty is nutrition chemistry. I devoted all my adult life to this study. Next week I shall at last begin to publish. What I reveal will rock the American junk food industry to its grotesquely profitable core. She halted, grinning. I ain't afraid of no potato chips. You should be, because I've discovered that they, in common with most other popular junk foods, contain hidden within their artificial flavorings and colors and preservatives and pseudo ingredients newly developed complex amino acids of extraordinary vitality. Either the food companies have been far ahead of the pharmaceutical and pesticide industries in genetic engineering, or else we are witnessing organic mutation on an undreamt of scale. To what nefarious end the food companies are striving to, I have not yet to discover, but rest assured I will. Some of the molecules I have isolated within shoe pie bunny cakes, for example, are positively Byzantine. Something sinister is taking place within our stores. Whatever it is, it's finding its way into our children's lunch pails. He turned wistful. 30 years ago, I would have said it was all a Russian plot. But I think the poor Russians are likewise on the verge of succumbing to the same sort of global gut-busting infiltration. Right. She made a production of checking her watch. Well, you better finish up your studies here fast, Professor. We close in 30 minutes. I need more time than that. 30 minutes. She turned and headed north in the direction of the checkout registers. Idiots, Smoke thought. Blind fools. He was going to save the country. Save the world, in spite of its slavish, ingrained genuflection to oversweetened dreck. Considering current the dietary habits, it was a wonder the species continued to survive at all. Facts were undeniable. When this paper finally exploded on the world convenience food scene, specialists would rush to confirm his findings. Too late then for the bloated millions of a bilious, multi-billion-dollar industry to conceal the truth any longer from a hitherto doped, market-going public. Emerging from beneath the concealing pile of uncrushed cartons, he climbed out of the compactor and surveyed the storage room at the rear of the market. It was dark and deserted. It had a couple of hours before the store reopened. Using his keychain flashlight, he returned to the aisle where he had the encounter with the young clerk. Going to save her too, he thought, before her body was unalterably poisoned. It was his crusade and his alone. The big health groups didn't have a clue, or his analytical expertise. A few final notes and his research would be complete. Then to the computer to integrate final thoughts with the rough manuscript. Polish and publish. This is the last store on his list. The final line of the last page of the statistics and a study that had taken decades and encompassed more than 50 cities and towns. All visits personally by him. He couldn't trust graduate students to carry out the field work. They were all contaminated by the very products he was sworn to eradicate from the shelves of the world's supermarkets. He'd been forced to do all the research on his own. It was the same wherever he went. Identical strange molecules and peptide chains in dozens of products, regardless of band name. Clever they were, but Mocha stumbled upon their secrets. Soon he would expose the nature of their callous perfidy to a shocked public. Aisle 6 stretched on ahead of him. Shelves crammed full of brightly colored, air-puffed victuals, utterly devoid of nutritional value and inherently antithetical to the digestive system of the human body. They all but glowed behind their chromatic wrappings, tantalizingly easy to consume, irresistibly crammed full of false flavor, quisling comestibles capable of weakening both mental and physical resolve. He knew them for what they were, nurturants for the brain damaged. Something quivered slightly on the shelf just behind his left shoulder. He whirled, saw nothing. Chuckling uneasily, he sauntered on, and froze. They were moving. The packages on the shelves ahead, twitching slightly, jerking against their containers and wrappings. Huge bags of intimidating chips, densely packed containers of tightly brown pretzels, stacks of cream-filled non-cakes, all gyrating and weaving and rustling invitingly. I hear the sound now, a low, insinuating moan, the tempting murmur of empty calories, of empires of gluttony built on salt and refined white sugar. Eat us, the enticing susurration whispered coaxingly. You have deprived yourself for too long. Have put yourself outside pleasure for no reason. Devour and delight. He blinked, clapped his hands over his ears. The micro cassette recorder slipped from his finger to strike the unyielding Hawaiian punch-stained floor. Its cover popped open and the tape fell out. Pained, he knelt to recover it. Something landed on his back. Forgetting the recorder, he reached around wildly. Something soft and sticky filled his fingers. Terrified, he found himself staring down at a handful of squished, blood-red lunchbox cherry pie, which contained no cherries and no pie. It oozed between his fingers, the unctuous crimson gunk crowding beneath his fingernails. Eat me, the glutinous mass urged him. Suck me up. You'll like it. With a cry, he rose and flung the fragments of pseudo pie as far as he could, but some of it stuck to his fingers anyway. Stumbling backwards, he crashed into the nearest shelves. Flinging wildly, he brought down on top of himself piles of chips, stacks of Cheetos, heavy lumps of sponge cake and devil's food cake and white cake and lemon cake, differentiated solely by the type of artificial coloring they contained. They were all over him now, moving, these strange molecules he discovered boldly asserting themselves. They wanted, cried out, demanded to be consumed. He struggled beneath their empty weight and tried to yell for help. But the 8-year-olds who could have rescued him were tucked snug in their beds far from the shuttered market. Looking down, he saw bags of pretzels and honey-roasted corn nuts splitting open, their overbaked, oversaturated, oversalted entrails spilling across his chest and legs. He kicked wildly, sending crumbs flying but unable to get to his feet. His arms and chest were slowly disappearing beneath thick cords of plastic white cream and dark imitation fudge filling. His eyes widened as he saw them humping sinuously towards his face, death reduced to spongy, sweet blandness. They crammed themselves into his mouth, shoving his lips apart, forcing themselves down his throat. He continued to struggle, to fight, but it was useless. They overwhelmed him, relentless and unyielding in their desire to please, to slavishly gratify the basest of human desires. The light began to fade from his eyes. He had been careless, he realized, unwilling to envision what they were capable of. But who could have imagined? Did even the bioengineers who had given impetus to such mutations imagine what the ultimate result of their work might be? He doubted it. Surely the lethal reality he was experiencing exceeded even their capacious greed. He was going, but at least he wouldn't die hungry. God damn, what a mess. The officer wrinked his nose at the sight and his attending smell. Forensic was finishing up, making way for the coroner. Their jobs were relatively straightforward. It was the mortician he didn't envy. The coroner's assistant was running on the pad. The officer nodded to him. They knew each other. Kerwin? Hey, man. The assistant looked up. Ever seen anything like this before? The cop shook his head. What do you think happened? The coroner glanced up the aisle. Off what I'm used to seeing on the street, my guess is that he swallowed a 12-gauge shell that might go inside of him, but there's no sign of powder or shell fragments. I'm beginning to think he just over-binged and self-destructed. The hell you say? Look at him. I'd rather not, at least no more than I have to. The coroner's reluctance was understandable. Most of what had once reposed in the cavity between the dead man's sternum and crotch lay scattered across the supermarket floor and shelves, shockingly bright amongst the frozen, undulating sea of partially digestive cakes and cookies, snack foods, and fruit chewies. As near as we've been able to figure out, the guy went a junk food binge to end all junk food binges. It was like he couldn't control himself. As if he had no resistance to the stuff, no resistance at all. Like the Polynesians who were suddenly exposed to European diseases to which they had no built-up immunity. You know how much air they cram into this junk? Ordinarily it doesn't give anything except maybe a little gas now and then. But he was downing the stuff so fast it must have blocked his colon. Then he choked on it, and when no escape valve, as it were, the pent-up gas, well, he just blew up. Damnedest thing I ever saw. You ain't alone, old buddy. Wonder what made him do it. Beats me. The coroner shrugged, finishing his notes. Got all the signs of someone who's been force-fed, except he obviously did it to himself. like a French goose on the pate line, and I thought I knew every way a person to commit suicide. He shook his head ruefully. It's one business where you don't get a kick out of learning something new. He put his pen to his lips. When the hell am I going to list as reason for demise? The cop looked thoughtful. If it's up to me, I'd put down accidental and leave it at that. You get him a hook until something better turns up. The assistant coroner looked resigned. Then the corner of his mouth turned slightly. He scribbled on the pad, showed it to his friend. I can't turn on it this way, of course. The boss would have my ass. The officer looked down, smiling slightly in spite of himself. Cause? Death by Twinkie. They shuddered a chuckle. The coroner pocketed his pad. As he turned the leaf, he noticed a broken but otherwise undisturbed package on the floor. Reaching down, he rescued a couple of orphaned cream-filled cupcakes with garish orange icing, passing one to his friend. With a wink, the cop bit deeply into his own. The sensation of the thick-creamed, sugar-saturated, calorie-rich, crumbly mass slid down his throat was indescribable. The end.